third part of Greek philosophy and its influence by the law of one. And now we're going to talk about a very controversial character, Parmenides. All right, so Parmenides was very controversial because of the way he started to decode reality, and it was very contradictory to the ways other thinkers were talking about, especially Heraclitus, which we covered in the last video. And this is the reason why I wanted to include Parmenides here. Now, the most important part, it's going to become obvious as we go through his way of thinking and how his way of thinking stimulated the other pre-Socratic thinkers before Plato reconciled everything into what we now know the realm of forms or ideas. So, which beautifully explain a way that we can understand it without getting too much into the abstracts that Heraclitus and Parmenides got. So for this, let's actually consider that there are two pre-Socratic, there's a division between pre-Socratics. Pre-Socratics meaning previous to Socrates, because things change after Socrates as well. But there are two divisions, which is pre-Parmenides and post-Parmenides. And we'll see that after Parmenides when we cover Empedocles, Anaxagoras, and Democritus. But without getting too much into the details, Parmenides kind of split the way we were thinking back then. And this is the reason why. We're going to start, and it's going to make sense because those who follow the law of one will understand how he was seeing one part of reality, but he couldn't reconcile the other side. So this all started with Parmenides stating that everything was an illusion, and that because of that, we couldn't trust our senses. And due to that, he would say that only the mind and reasoning could give us what's real. He said in a very confusing way, it needs must be that what can be thought and spoken of is, for it is possible for it to be, and it is not possible for what is nothing to be. We'll talk about this. And the last thing is that my interpretation is that it's not possible, or it's impossible to form a concept from the nothingness or formless. All right, so let's try to untangle this whole mess. Let's zoom out and look at Parmenides as somebody who said, well, wait a minute, things cannot come into being from not being. And this is a very, semantic way to see the concepts of what Heraclitus was talking about. And you can already see the paradox that he's creating here. But it was a valid point back then in Greek thinking, because he came to say that everything is an illusion because nothing can come out, or something cannot come out of nothing. He couldn't reconcile that. And that's why he would say that, nothing can be something, because if it's not, it cannot be. And if it came to be, then it already was. So it's a very confusing way to see reality. But that was his way of explaining things, that things could not be because they had to be in the past. And if they were in the past, then they always were. Whereas if it came from nothing, then nothing cannot become something. And this is why I say that, the interpretation of this by other scholars is that it's impossible to form a concept from nothingness. It's what he was trying to say. But I think he was applying this to the world itself, reality. Remember, Heraclitus was saying that everything was in constant flux. Everything was changing. So this created also a problem of thinking, because it created epistemological, incoherence, that we couldn't know the truth. Meaning that we couldn't form any concept of anything, because there wasn't a way to describe things, because everything was changing. So that was a problem in and of itself. But then Parmenides introduced the problem of how can something become, because we obviously live in a place where everything is changing and becoming. So he would say that everything was all the time. And that is, like I said, Parmenides' ideas are very confusing. But the most important part that it's gonna make sense is that he would see everything as an illusion. And we do know that this reality is an illusion. So he was right on the money there. He said that everything was always what it is. So in a way, Parmenides was seeing the truth about the metaphysical reality, where everything is infinity in essence. And when you see and I think this was the influence that Parmenides got. I don't think it was the Confederation, might have been, or maybe he got distorted in that way, but is that when you try to understand infinity, you cannot create a finite concept of it. You can explain it with finite concepts, yes, but you can never arrive at understanding it completely. And this is why I actually have a note in one of the slides where this is the problem of trying to understand what the Chinese call the Tao. You cannot understand it, you cannot explain it. It's just something that's flowing. It's intelligent infinity. In the law of one, the raw material, they say that there's no way to conceptualize infinity. There's no real concept that could describe it. And I think this is what Parmenides was wrestling with when he was talking about the impossibility of something becoming out of nothing. So I hope it makes sense, because this is the best part that we can take out of Parmenides when he's talking about the illusion of reality coming out from the metaphysical world, which again, they didn't think about a metaphysical world the way we think of it right now. They were trying to understand all of this, and only based in reality, knowing that everything was an illusion, then he would go on to say that everything simply was, and it could not come out of nothing, which is something that we now know it is possible, at least in the way we think in our philosophy. So the next couple of things that I have from Parmenides is that, like I said already, becoming is not possible, for it already existed. And like I explained already, the result of trying to conceptualize infinity is incoherence. This is the Tao, Chinese Tao. He would say that what exists cannot come from nothingness. I talked about this already. And the problem is that we're trying to conceptualize nothing with something. Finally, Plato reconciled the ideas from Heraclitus, and which was the epistemological impossibility, and Parmenides, which was a physical impossibility. So this is why Parmenides was so important to Greek thinking, because he introduced the wait a minute, things cannot be coming out of nothing, so there has to be, everything needs to simply be, there needs to be a static something, and that something cannot be nothing, so it always is. So it's almost like Parmenides was only seeing the illusion, reality, but could not understand. This is something that Plato finally got into the realm of forms, which was a static thing. It was a perfect realm. And then the world of becoming was the physical, where everything was changing. So Heraclitus was right on the world of physical reality, and Parmenides was right in the realm of forms as Plato reconciled them. So this is why Parmenides played a very important role. And before we get into Plato, or which we're not going to get into Plato, at least in this series, or before getting into Plato, actually, there were other thinkers that actually made these assumptions about reality that wrestled with, again, Parmenides' ideas and Heraclitus as well, to create a more coherent concept of reality. And those we're going to cover in the future videos. So again, this is the reason why I wanted to include Parmenides in this series, because he created that one thinking that was, okay, wait, everything is an illusion from our perceptions. Our senses cannot be trusted. And this is true. We rely too much on our senses. And this is perhaps one of the problems that we have in Western thought, that we derive everything from our senses. We take too much as reality. And at least at that point, even if it wasn't his intention when saying that, Parmenides was right. We do trust too much our senses. They cannot be trusted. Even though Parmenides was saying that, nothing could be trusted. So everything that was real was actually inside the mind, and everything else was just an illusion. He would also go on to say that movement itself was an impossibility because of the same principle, that there couldn't be empty space, because empty space would then be considered nothing, so nothing cannot become something. So again, I think he was grasping the right concept there. But in any case, his contribution to all of this was just this abstract way of thinking of reality as only being. So that's it. That's Parmenides. In the next one, we're going to cover probably one of my favorite two in this whole series, which is Empedocles. Empedocles created a fascinating model of reality in a way that we're going to cover in an exclusive video, of course, because again, I love Empedocles as much as I love Heraclitus and the way they were thinking, and how Empedocles now had to deal with Parmenides and Heraclitus' way of seeing reality. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in Empedocles videos.